Yeah.
Go ahead.
So there are three key things I'd like to share that I feel will connect well with your theme. And the first is red thread as connection to Mother Earth, to Gaia, and the weaving that takes place. So the red thread, which I have here in the sacred chalice, this to me is a symbol of the divine feminine. So using this as a guide, a tangible physical representation to help us become more conscious of how the divine feminine works in our lives. Yeah, so to me, the red thread is also a representation of the healing that comes when we own and reclaim our piece of the red thread. It's a symbol that can be found in all parts of the world. And when I learned about this, I was struck, by how in Native American traditions, in Europe, India, China, etc., it's a universal symbol. And it therefore carries a unique and powerful medicine. And there are many legends, many stories about the red thread, but the one I like the most is it's also the reason why I call the circles that I facilitate sister circles instead of women's circles. So the story goes, when each of us was born, we emerged from our mother's wombs with an umbilical cord. And it's red, it's pulsing with blood and life. And our mothers connected to their mothers, and then their mothers, we're all connected via this red umbilical cord. And so across generations, across time and space, all humans are connected via this thread. And then since we all come from the earth, right, our bones, our flesh, our blood, we are made of elements of the earth. So too are we connected via a red thread to Mother Earth. And that makes us all, in a very real sense, sisters. So that's the first teaching that I want to share about the red thread.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and the second key I'd like to share is about the red thread as a symbol. And this is where ceremony comes back into the picture. As women, we are cyclical beings. And the red thread is a reminder of a woman's cycle. Because again, the red, it reminds me of the blood that we shed every month. And seeing your body as a sacred vessel. And that's why my red thread is in that chalice.
In the chalice. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is that idea of how we as women, we live cyclically. This is something that has been forgotten for a long time. Again, in the masculine way of doing things, in the way our work calendars and schedules are structured, it's very patriarchal. Small movements are growing where companies, certain more conscious organizations are giving permission for women to take a day or two off when they're on their cycle. But for thousands of years, this was not the case, right? So what I love about the red thread, it's that it's a reminder, and I hold my sister circles once a month. So I follow the moon cycle. And again, as you know, menstruation, right? Our cycle follows the rhythms of the moon, more so in ancient times when we were more grounded rather than now. But still, once you start tracking your cycle and once you start opening up and becoming more conscious, you'll find that your monthly cycle, if you're still cycling, it will sync with the phases of the moon. So every time we gather in circle, for example, there is an opening, a time of gathering, and then there is a time of closing, we end, and then we release. And so there are further teachings about the red thread and how when we snip it off, that signals an end. And we do that in a ceremonial space. We also honor the Sabbats, the seasonal cycles, and of course, the astrological weather is weaved in as well. But just to say, right, because I feel that a woman's cycle is not revered enough. And this is why I bring in ceremony. So the full name of my circles, it's quite long, but it's called Ceremonial Sister Circles, where every time we gather, we imbue the ordinary with the sacred. with reverence, so that the energies will be more focused and directed as well. And ritual. As you know, Julia, ritual is the bridge between the material and the spiritual world. So every time we gather once a new moon, we do ritual, which infuses every moment with the sacred. And it is this consistency and this regularity of coming together in community, right? It also indicates to the universe what you are present to, what you are committed to. And this is the beautiful process of co-creation that I speak so much about. And then very quickly, where the red thread ties in as well. Again, like I mentioned, there are so many stories. I haven't finished sharing them in my circles, but one particular one, the Greek myth about Ariadne, Theseus, and the Minotaur. So in the interest of time, I think I'm just going to give the bare bones of what's essential to know. In this story, Theseus, the young Greek hero, he's tasked to conquer the labyrinth. But no man has ever gotten out alive, for they get lost and they're eaten up by a monster with the head of a bull. And it's interesting that it's the head of a bull, which is associated with Taurus and all of that. But anyway, coming back to the summarized, condensed version, the only reason Theseus was able to succeed was because Ariadne, who is the daughter of the king that conducted this test, she gave the hero a ball of red thread, which enabled him to find his way. So that's the patriarchal story, right? And the focus was always on the male protagonist. But when we look at it as women, as creatrixes with wombs and with monthly cycles, we actually hold the key. We carry the red thread, but we've forgotten it. So it's about coming back into remembrance and a reverence. So that's the second key that I wanted to highlight. And then the final piece of the red thread, and this was something that I learned when I was facilitating circles, which is to see time and space as quantum. And earlier I shared that I love the subheading of your summit theme, weaving ancient and future threads together. And again, the idea of weaving, this idea of a tapestry and a thread. So I just feel I love all these synchronicities that I felt into when I was tuning into what I wanted to offer and share today. So quantum. For hundreds of years, what dominated human civilization was a scientific worldview. And this worldview was based on Newtonian physics. You may have, if you've grown up in a conventional school system and you took physics as a subject in school, you may remember some of the equations, some of the laws and the rules that you learned. So the premise is that we are living in a physical, materialistic world where we're all separated. There are clear distinctions. There are, for example, laws of gravity that you follow. But then now, quantum physics, it's showing us that there are, in fact, unseen connections between what we had previously thought were separate entities, and that it is actually these unseen structures that form the fundamental building blocks of all creation. So one key idea from quantum physics is that time and space, they are actually arbitrary constructs. They are man-made. They're human when you look at the clock and the time, right? So what we see as linear time and also geography separated by distance, it may not be as important as we had previously believed them to be. So in the quantum realm, the organizing principle is that the world that we lived in is an interconnected universe. So again, it flows beautifully to the theme of your summit. The idea that we live in an interconnected universe, that we are all tied, we're all connected to one another. And I want to bring up the idea of how the world is fractal in nature. The alchemical maxim for this from the Emerald Tablet is, as above, so below, as within, so without. And the scientific way of looking at this is to understand the nature of the fractal universe that we live in. So chaos theory, that came about through an understanding of fractals. And one of the ways of explaining chaos theory is how a butterfly that's flapping its wings in South America, it can lead to a hurricane that forms in another part of the world. And it's interesting because I learned about chaos theory first when I was studying economics. But the whole premise is that a seemingly insignificant action by this tiny butterfly can result in the creation of a force of nature. This is how everything is interconnected. But as human beings with a limited understanding of how the world operates, we may not understand the immediate logic of that. But when you understand that this is fractal, the world is fractal, they were living in a holographic universe. There are these complex patterns that can be found in both the macro and the micro. So the red thread, for me, it's about creating a culture of connection, to live in a knowing that there is a cosmic weaving in the world that you and I live in. And to know what your piece of the red thread is. So that goes into the teachings, which I talk about in my circles. To know what your piece of the red thread is to know what your personal gift or medicine is, so that you can live your sacred work in the world. You know, it was so interesting that early on you made that point about how we're not ignoring the masculine in the equation. And then I shared, but I know very clearly that my piece of the red thread, for now at least, is to work in devotion to the feminine with women. And then there are many other beautiful people out there, healers and, you know, that you're interviewing, I'm sure, who are in service to the masculine, and that we each carry a piece of our red thread, but we're not separate. Because the work that we're doing, we are actually interweaving a beautiful tapestry. So knowing that you are connected, you know, it really takes away the whole, to me, very toxic masculine paradigm of competition and comparison, feeling that you're not enough, that you're inadequate. So for me, knowing that you are connected, it changes the way you think, the way you feel, the way you live and operate in the world. So every time that we gather in the monthly circles that I hold, you get to reinforce this sense of knowing that you are not alone and that we are all a part of the whole. So very quickly, I hope you have time. One teaching of the red thread is that when you are in need of extra support, you can always tug on the red thread. So just imagine in your mind a huge web, cosmic web. There was this image that I used recently in my circle, and I just love it. It was like Mother Earth, and then all these hands weaving a tapestry around, encircling the globe. So what I'll share is that when I first trained to be a circle facilitator, I had a very tangible experience of this. And because this was 2020 and the world was in lockdown, the training was conducted online. So I was circling with sisters from all over the world. And to this day, I still tug on the thread and reach out to the sisters whom I first weaved this tapestry with. And it's such a powerful and special feeling, Julia, that I can't express enough how it transformed my life. Because it's a knowing, it's not just a mental belief, because it's a beautiful idea. But when you know it, it becomes an embodied trust in your body. Yeah. So again, every month when we meet, we weave this field and it gets stronger and stronger because you need that consistency and that regularity. So I hold my circles online, and we always presence the sisters who are not able to attend live. Because at the end of the day, you know, what I was sharing about this quantum sense of time and space being immaterial, we are all held in a quantum field of love. We're all a part of a morphogenic field that connects us through time and space. So ancient and future timelines, you know, the both and.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I really love that you were giving us this visual of the red thread, because I feel that I was like unraveling, like going from from the labyrinth to the quantum to like so all the way like unraveling that red thread that kept on weaving that tapestry. So as you took us through all these different layers, um, that was just a fabulous way, as you told in the story, also then to take the thread and to go back and see, oh my God, where has it taken me? This is huge. There is so much that is now also as codes in the thread so that I can retrieve it and that everybody who's touching the thread can retrieve it too, right? Wow, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I can just reinforce the point that you said about community and circles. And I guess, the invaluable part of yeah, people like you is the alchemy and the transformation that happens along the process.